Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Dr. Glenn Vo. I am super excited to have this guest on, and welcome to another edition of our podcast. Welcome to the Emerging Group Practice Podcast, the ultimate hub for unleashing the power within your group dental practice. I'm your host, Dr. Glenn Vo, and together we'll embark on a thrilling adventure to discover revolutionary strategies, breakthrough techniques, and awe-inspiring success stories that will take your practice to the next level. So before we get into our episode, I'd like to give a shout out to Mango Voice, one of our premier sponsors. Mango Voice offers voice over IP phones for dental practices, but it's so much more. Go check them out and make sure you ask for the Nifty Thrifty deal. And our guest today is the man behind UniFi and so many other things, so many tech pros and all this knowledge. It's Tanner Applegate. Tanner, I like to dub you as like the tech whisperer, the dental tech whisperer. So I don't know, man. Has that caught on yet?
I like that. No, the first one that you gave me was the tech insider, and I was like, that's a good one. I'm gonna try and stick that. So now the whisperer, I gotta go and see which one competes, insider or whisperer.
I mean, we might have to do a poll later on to say, what do you guys like, whisperer or insider? But regardless, I'm super happy to have you here. And for those who, we're just gonna dive right in. So for those who don't know who you are, right? Maybe they're not as active in the group dental practice space. Tell us about what you do. Obviously, you're the tech insider, but what you do and also your company, and then from there we'll just go back in time and talk about how you got roped into this interesting and ever evolving industry of dentistry.
So that's a great question. So I think that where I'm at right now, I would describe it as endlessly curious, right? So I have finished now my time or sojourn in the operational dental space. And so now the next challenge that I want to overcome is solving problems through technology, right? So I'm actually in the very early stages of a tech startup. I mean, we've got a great product that's out there kind of helping dental offices, specifically focusing on dental offices, solve kind of their password management and or app needs, right? So it's, again, we're in beta. We've got a handful of paying customers that we kind of work with actively, but I love kind of connecting with those early stage kind of people that are early adopters, right? So those are the people that I love to connect with and say, hey, if you could build this any way that you want, what would that look like? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, that's where I'd say my full-time gig is. My passion drives me in a million different directions. I'm always looking at the newest dental tech, right? I'm constantly meeting with these founders to be like, okay, why did you do this? What's the big problem that you're solving, et cetera? So that is one of the things that I signed as my passion that a lot of people are gravitate towards and kind of love hearing more about.
I mean, again, that's why you're dubbed as the insider or AKA the whisperer. We're going to figure out which one works best. But, and that's the thing that what I love about what you're doing, it's grounded in real life experience, right? And there's something to be said about that because, in this arena, there's a lot of noise, right? There's a new platform all the time. There's a new app, there's a new, software that's going to make things so much easier for, again, the end user being the people in the dental practice. But I love the fact that you are approaching it from real world experience. You worked in a group practice space. You were you were part of the leadership. You jumped in there, you helped systems and really got them to a place where they're so much more better off. So let's talk about that background, because I think it's really important to understand for our listeners and viewers to understand that, you face this. This is not something that you're just walking around and thought, oh, I think this is a great idea. No, you faced this. You saw other people having the same issue. So talk about that background on how you got into dentistry and then about that group practice that you worked with and, ultimately got them to another level.
Yeah, Glenn, I know that you've got kids. You and I connect over kind of our experiences or stories with kids. But back when I was a kid, I don't know why, but if you would have asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, the answer was a dentist. So when I went to undergrad, obviously I had my sights set on dental school. That was the thing that I was going to do. And I've just kind of always been a fact finder, right? So I just started interviewing a bunch of the dentists that I knew. And I said, hey, if you could do undergrad differently, what would you do? And without any exception, all of them said that they wish they studied business, right? They're these individual practice owners, and they're like, man, I wish I had a little bit of business experience. So that's what I did. In undergrad, I did my business major with my pre-dental prereqs on the side, and quickly realized that I was way more passionate and excited about kind of the business aspect of it, and realized through kind of research of what was happening in the dental industry that dentists in general need the support of a good, experienced business person to kind of help make sure that the office is running efficiently so they can focus on what's more important, which is the patient care. So through that time and experience, I realized, you know what, instead of going to dental school, getting a bunch of hundreds of $1,000s in debt and kind of figuring out later that that's not what I wanted, I just kind of jumped in right into practice, ownership, and management, where I said, you know what, like, how do we make sure that the processes and systems and the organization in general around the dentist is at the best shape that it can be, in order to make sure that those dentists have the support they need to focus on that patient care, right? So did that in Colorado. We grew that location first, about 5 different offices.
Wow.
Sold out of that. And then we started up with a new partner and grew that one to a different size before I realized, you know what, part of the piece that's missing in order to make sure that the dentists are able to focus on what they're doing is there's this huge technology gap in dental, right? So as you said earlier, like, this is based off of grounding and experience. These are things that, like, I literally would have to go in and build our own versions of software inside of our DSO,
Wow.
because we were fortunate enough to be at a size where we could, but not everybody is.
Yeah.
Right. And so in order to kind of help with that, I said, you know what, I love running dental group. I love working with the clinicians and the team members, but I really want to see if I can help solve industry-wide problems, right? Not just solve a problem for one DSO, but solve a problem for the industry. And that's when I said, you know what, let's take this risk and jump out of the DSO world and into the tech space. So that's kind of where we are. Long story short, always been fascinated with technology and decided to kind of move into that area.
Yeah, and so again, something that you identified, right? And we had conversations about this, where when you walk into, let's just look at it from just a single practice perspective, right? You go in a single practice, and there's multiple platforms that you have to navigate. That you not only have to navigate, your team has to navigate, and you have to give them certain permissions, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now let's multiply that by, I would say, like by 10 when you're dealing with big groups. And then that becomes super overwhelming there. So again, that is something that you're very passionate about solving. And talk about how, what UniFi is doing to solve those things, and what are your hopes for the future with the platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that I realized, I'm huge into numbers and processes, right? And so a lot of the things that I paid attention to was, what were the things that my team members were doing to produce this outcome? And if this outcome wasn't where I wanted it, what could we do in order to help them be more engaged and excited? And one of the things that I saw, just kind of as you alluded to, is the fact that, hey, you've got all these different processes, right? So, I mean, different platforms, whether they are a software or they're a web portal or whatever, right? So let's just use an example of insurances, okay?
Yeah.
You've got somebody standing in front of you. All of a sudden, the doctor diagnosed them with this new procedure that you didn't anticipate, and you actually don't know from a verification perspective if they cover it or not. So you're presenting this treatment, it's in the moment, you've got that patient in front of you. You can guarantee that without a tool like UniFi, that person in the front desk, they're not going to go onto the web portal and do a quick check to see.
They're just winging it.
Oh yeah, they're going to just make it up and be like, hey, maybe the insurance will pay this. I don't know. We'll collect afterwards, right? Whereas with UniFi, what we do is we're putting every tool that you use into a single place. So you say, oh, hey, you got Cigna. Let me click on my UniFi and I'll click on Cigna. It pulls it up automatically for them. They don't have to worry about the website, about the passwords, any of these things. They're just immediately there, where now they're confident, hey, this is going to actually get me in. I'm not going to have to worry if, like, Susie in the front desk, she's the one that changed the password and what it is, right? So that's a kind of an example of a use case of, like, hey, we really want to make sure that you're streamlining these processes by making it super easy for your team to confidently access all of them, right? Making sure that those passwords are accurate. You're not having to sit there and chase them around, et cetera.
And I'll add this too. Again, we were just talking about, if you walk into just a single location, much less like a big, large multi-location, right? All the software you use on the dental side. But you just brought up something that I think people need to consider as well. There's a lot of non-dental software that we use every day, and because we use it all the time, it's almost like second nature, right? It's like you don't realize that you're driving a car and there's a lot that goes into the car, you don't realize it because you just drive a car every day, right? You don't realize when you sit down on a computer, you gotta, you start Windows or if you have a Mac, you start the operating system there. Then maybe you're using a Google product. Then you maybe using a Windows product. Maybe you're using this, and then you have to realize you stack that on top of all the dental stuff. I mean, man, I'm just getting a headache just thinking about how many things we actually use every day.
I mean, honestly, I could just start throwing. So we've found on average, Glenn, that it's about 50 different programs that a company will use.
Oh
and these are,
gosh.
so here's some just like ones that you might not think about, right? Like your bank portal access. What is the time tracking software? Where are you running your payroll? What is your website live chat software? What is your video conferencing software? What is your clinical supply ordering, which is usually about 5 to 10, right? What are you doing for clinical compliance? What are you doing for your lab interactions? What are you doing for VoIP, right? So like the list is endless of how many of these tools we use. You're right. You're like, maybe I'll access this once a month, but the one time that month that I need it, I need to be predictable that I'm going to get into it and not spend the next 2 hours trying to figure out how to get back into it.
And Tanner, we're just talking about, you're talking about all those programs and all those platforms for one person. Now, if I have to share it with my whole team, now multiply that by 10 if you have multiple locations. And of course, not everyone should have the same permission and all those things. Man, that's like almost like a job in itself, right? To navigate that.
What's even scarier too, Glenn, though, is a lot of the times those softwares, you're not the one as the owner signing up for them. It is your office manager signing up for them. And so when they leave, you're out of luck, right? A lot of the times you don't know where they stored that information. You don't know how to access it. They have to go in and recreate it if they can even recreate it. And so now all of a sudden you're kind of dead in the water when a key member leaves.
Well, I'm going to raise my hand here because I am guilty of delegating like that before. And I learned the hard way because, maybe Susie knew how to access. She wrote the password down and it was in a notebook that's underneath like 5 other binders. And I never found it. And I literally had to create a new account. Super frustrating. Yeah. Super frustrating there. Now, let me ask you this again. I'm already excited. I've been kind of like bugging you and we've kind of been going back and forth. We need to nail down time because I need to get on the beta tester list. But for those who are intrigued and they're like, okay, they're probably looking up the site right now. They want to know more. Where are you at? Again, I know you said that you really want to fine tune this. This is such an important part, such an important mission. You want to make sure everything's done right. But how far are we talking about here as far as like where you're at right now to a full launch where everybody, single practice to multi-location DSO, that they can actually start using this product?
Yeah, that's a great question, Glenn. Right now, our number one goal is to make sure that what we promise in the product is actually delivered, right? So the reason why we kind of deem our stage as beta is because what we've promised is not guaranteed, right? We know that there's going to be bugs and issues, et cetera. And so if you're interested, I mean, right now I would say that we've gone through and measured that we have kind of like a 80 to 85% accuracy rate, but we don't want 80 to 85, right? Oh. So if we were to take a guess on when we are going to do an official launch, we have an event going kind of the end of this year towards the tech side of dentistry, that passion that I have. Yeah. We really want to make sure our product is ready for launch then, right? Not beta stage, but actual ready 100%, where 99.9%, right? Of being able to say, hey, here's everything that we've promised and it actually delivers what we promise.
And then as far as people who want to be beta users or maybe just want to be the first to hear about it, is there a list that they can get on to kind of hear the first, like the latest and greatest news or when it's going to get close to being released?
Yeah, right now our website, www.unify.dental, no .com or any other stuff, right? Unify.dental. Right now there is a get demo button on there. And that was where we we'd love to chat through what's your interest in it, right? Maybe you are a good fit for beta, maybe you're not, but either way, just kind of getting what is the thing that you're experiencing in your office is super valuable feedback. So that's where we kind of do with those those demos, say, let's start there.
Well, I'll let everyone know the first second that I hear that is about to get launched, you guys, whoever's watching, listening, you'll be the first to know. I'll make sure that Tanner tells me right away. So that's awesome. Okay. Again, I'm super excited about it. I think it's really going to help out, not just the dentists, right? I mean, you really thought about just helping the team members as well, because the last thing you want to do is go to your doctor and say, oh, I don't don't know the password to our merchant services or something like that, right? And if I'm like, face down working on some composites or something, or doing a crown prep, the last thing I want to do is look back up and tell you what the password is, right? So this is going to help team members out so much. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here because, Tanner, you are an amazing entrepreneur, but you also have so much great experience just working in the group practice space. We're going to switch gears here. And the next segment we're doing is, I like to call it the group practice 3, right? The group practice 3, we're going to ask 3 really good questions here that's going to help out anyone who has an emerging group practice. And the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what system that you developed that in the group practice you worked with was a system, something, it could be something really simple, maybe really complex, whatever it is, but something that really helped you out and helped your team out?
That's a great question. Are we doing rapid fire, or are we doing
yeah, so
a little bit of explanation?
You can answer as fast as you want.
Okay, so my rapid fire is that we built in our own kind of data analytics platform on the back end to help us measure the results that we wanted.
Nice. Is it like almost like a dental intel style, like analytics, like that, like looking at the numbers?
Totally.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then what tool, and this is just you personally, what tool, it could be digital, non-digital, it could be a notebook, like I still take notes on a regular notebook. What tool has helped you just as a entrepreneur, as someone in this space, just helped you in your career? It could be digital, non-digital.
I think that right now, actually, I'm tied. So I would have to pick between an iPad with a pencil, Apple Pencil, because the ability to kind of brain dump and just do things there on a canvas, but then I can then transfer other places, has been instrumental. And then also ClickUp by helping us kind of organize projects and ideas and stuff.
Wow. Yeah. And yeah, no, that's something, because sometimes whenever I'm writing on my notepad and I have some really good stuff, it's kind of annoying. So I had to like take a pic. I figured out a slight hack. I'll take a picture of it and I'll upload it onto Google, and it will and I'll open it as a Google Doc and it'll transcribe it. But it's not exactly like 100%. And then of course it doesn't upload if I draw like a cool diagram. I have to, I don't even know how to write there. So I might have to steal that from you, Tanner. Okay, so I'm a big reader. I love reading. I also love listening to audiobooks. And I always like to ask my guests, what is your favorite book? But let's keep it business or nonfiction. What's your favorite book? And again, if you're like me, it's so hard to choose from. But what kind of jumps out right away when you think of your favorite book?
The one that I probably have gifted the most, and so whether that's my favorite or not, I don't quite know, but the one that I've gifted the most is Radical Candor.
I've never, okay, tell me about the book. What is the book about?
Radical Candor. So it talks about how setting a culture, and this is really, I think, very applicable for people similar to me, where you're maybe not Glenn, like we're not blessed like Glenn, where Glenn is a natural people person, right? You can connect with anybody and you're able to have kind of those relationships. Radical Candor talks about, like, as a leader, how do you take and make sure you're building a culture around being able to provide critical feedback, but also showing a deep level of empathy and like concern for that person. And she does it in a very kind of mapped out, like systematized type of way that really connected with me and helped me say, okay, there is a way to actually make sure that I am doing these things well. It just kind of really changed the trajectory of me as a leader.
I love that. That's definitely going to be on my list of books. And again, just full transparency to everyone. Everyone knows I like to ask these questions. So I'm looking for new books there. And just to address what you said about me, about naturally being able to connect with people, one of my favorite books is by Dale Carnegie. It was written in the 40s, right? It was written in the 40s, but all the lessons that he teaches and puts in the book, it's timeless. He applies it. Those are the best books. How to win friends and influence people.
That was the nonfiction book that got me hooked on nonfiction books. Like that was the first one that I ever read. And after that, like I couldn't stop. I just read so many different like nonfiction self-help type business books. And it's a winner for sure.
And you know, when you look at the title, I mean, again, don't let the title like turn you off. Because sometimes when you look at the title, like, oh, how lame is that? But It is true. It's such a great book. My godfather gave me, it was like one of my first nonfiction books I got from my godfather, and he was in the sales industry for years. He was amazing. And he was amazing because he followed those principles. So anyways, just throwing that out there. Okay.
Awesome.
So the next segment we're going to is learning from the past. And I love this segment because a lot of times when we go on social media, go on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, you see a lot of like highlight reels, right? Like, oh, look at this. I got this new position. Look at this. My practice is killing it. And the thing is that all the success that most people have, it is the foundation is from failures, right? Learning from failures, learning from hard experiences, and then leveling up. And so in the spirit, the spirit of leveling up, I want to ask you if you can share a mistake that you've made. If you're like me, you probably have a whole bunch of mistakes, right? So you got to pick one, but a mistake that you made that you learned something significant from, that someone can learn from.
Yeah, I think that this is one that I actually recently did a lot of reflection on, but it happened early on in my career. We were, I think, at probably 4 locations. I was starting to need to hire some people kind of on the centralized team in order to help me out because I was just doing way too much. And so I thought, okay, the first thing that I'm going to hire for is marketing. Did a ton of ads, got some amazing candidates, and eventually hired this extremely highly qualified person who was willing to come in with a pay cut, believed in the vision, believed in kind of what we were doing, and was excited to be a part of it, which I was extremely grateful for. But the thing was, at the time, I had never really led somebody of that caliber. And so I was still very, not manipulative, but micromanaging of kind of what he was doing, right? I wanted to know everything. I had my own opinion on it. Maybe we'd change things. And he wasn't the personality type to really kind of like be aggressive or competitive. And so he would just kind of do with whatever I thought every time because he wasn't going to push back with his ideas. Well, quickly we realized that I sat there and hired this expert, but I didn't let them be an expert. Right? I was too busy sitting there and telling them what my opinions or what I think they should have done, that it ended up flawed and not working out. And I still look back on this to this day, that when he eventually left the company because I kind of didn't let him flower and kind of have the impact that he wanted to, he was nice enough to kind of give me some harsh critical feedback of, these are the things that I think that you as a leader need to improve on. And I am eternally grateful for that as he was kind of heading out the door.
Wow. That's, I think that's something that we all can learn from. So thank you so much for sharing that, because sometimes we just have to, as leaders and visionaries, you have to just get the people who are good at what they're doing and just kind of get out of the way sometimes. So I love that advice. Now, if you could, Tanner, if you could jump into, your DeLorean or your phone booth or your hot tub time machine, like one of those things, and you could go back in time and talk to the younger version of yourself at any time, at any age, what would you tell that younger Tanner? What advice? And you only had a couple minutes, right? You had to get back to the future, right? So you'll have it. What would you tell the younger version of yourself?
Probably say it's okay to be yourself.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I think there's too many years of my life where I wanted to be what I thought somebody else wanted me to be. And it wasn't until I really started to embrace myself that success started to follow.
Yeah. I love that. I would also add too that that is not only something really big in business, but also your personal life as well.
Oh, totally.
You can, and I tell that to, I've told that to my younger sister a lot. I say, look, you should be yourself, because once you get in a long-term relationship, the truth will come out. Okay. And if they didn't like the true you, there's going to be some problems there. So again, that's great advice, something that for your personal life and also your business life as well. Okay. So, man, I can't believe we just flew by this podcast. Always great to talk to you. But before we jump off here, again, what are some final, words that you want to give to the audience, to anyone who's listening and watching? I know, again, we want people to go to your site, look at what you're doing, and just get ready for this to come out to the dental world. But any last thoughts or words for our audience?
think the kind of the final thing that keeps coming to my mind is that we are at a very exciting time of dentistry, right? Like the not only, like you said earlier, the amount of products that are coming out in dentistry, but also the amount of new categories that are coming out with products. Like, it's a very exciting time. And honestly, I think that hold on, because it's going to continue to change, and don't be afraid to kind of be one of those early adopters, because you're going to end up benefiting more long-term by taking advantage of that.
I love that. Great advice. Tanner, thank you so much for jumping on. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll have his website, everything about Tanner in the show notes, but thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much, Glenn.